podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast After Dark. I'm your co-host, Andrew Riche. I'm joined by Mr. Adam Murray. Adam, are you sneaking through the attic trying to whistle through your microphone?
Just trying to find a quiet crawl space here.
Trying to find a quiet place? That's a big hit on in the theaters now.
The Quiet Place?
It's called A Quiet Place. John Krasinski and his wife Emily Blunt. I think Krasinski directed it. It's about a family that, like, in a post-apocalyptic setting where they have to literally not speak or make sounds, because if they do, the monster will catch them.
I thought it was still Black Panther.
Well, I mean, Black Panther's like the hit of the century, but no, that was more of like a Rotten Tomatoes hit. Like, everybody loved it. Like, people would come out and talk about how much they enjoyed it. Like the new Get Out, I guess you could call it.
Yes, people seem to be loving that movie.
But not too much Quiet Place here. The funny part is we're making all these jokes because it is Tuesday night. Or is it Wednesday or Tuesday? I don't even know.
It's A Day. Good enough.
It's A Day. We're just gonna we'll keep it ambiguous unless we talk about certain games, and you'll pretty easily figure out what day we're talking about. Because we're gonna try to shuffle through what's going on in the regular season, but we're getting really, really close to the end. So there's a lot of trepidation, a lot of walking on eggshells, I guess you could say, and then a lot of landmines for a lot of these teams that are trying to make the playoffs, specifically in the Western Conference. The East has sort of worked itself out mathematically as we're speaking. The Detroit Pistons have a chance, but there's their time is up pretty fast.
They don't really have a chance. They've dug this hole they've gotten themselves into, and just maybe when the new coach comes in next year, they can change things up. But
my call, because I was listening to Mark Stein on another show, and I think he might have it right. I think that Stan will be removed as the president, but he's going to stay as the coach.
They're going to give him one more year? Yeah,
like Doc Rivers did. I think that's what might happen. I think the ownership, especially with the new arena, I think they want to make some kind of a splash. You thought the Blake trade would be the splash, but it didn't really make much of a difference outside of that very early start where they kind of got hot, and then they petered down again. Had a really rough. I think it was the beginning of March where they just really had it rough, and they started losing a bunch of games in a row, and that was really what did them in. At 37-40 as we speak. It's not a horrible year, but it's not near. It's definitely not as good as they could have been, even with the transaction.
No, it was just when you trade away all your shooters, and then basketball doesn't revolve around slow down anymore. It's not going to work. You need the 3-point shot, and they have none, so there's nothing you can do about it.
And just a total lack of wings. I mean, outside of Stanley Johnson, that's why they had to get James Ennis off the street. Just a tough situation for them. The one thing I will say about the East, even though most of it is solidified in terms of who's in, outside of one, I'm surprised the Milwaukee Bucks, because of their swooning, were the last team to clinch. I think that's the most surprising thing. Is that a surprise to you as well?
Well, that's what happens when you have great talent with no coaching. Don't forget, they fired Jason Kidd, so it's just there's no, interim coach isn't going to put his own.
But here's the thing. Joe Prunty was like Jason Kidd's right-hand man. You knew nothing was going to change. Maybe they play a little harder on defense because their defense was awful when Kidd was fired. Maybe they played just a tad faster, but it wasn't going to be that much different from Jason Kidd.
Yeah, and they still look lost out there, so it's one of those things like, well, that's just what happens. This is the difference between good coaching and bad coaching. Bad coaching, you have Giannis, and, well, we got Giannis, and we'll just give it to him because we have nothing really going on. So
now, how attractive of a job is that? That's huge.
It's a very, very attractive. It kind of is, but you're handcuffed to that roster because you have no cap space for like 3 years.
Well, that depends also on what happens with Jabari Parker, because, I mean, no, he did go off for 35 points, even though it was an overtime loss to the Nuggets. So he's getting back into the groove. It was it was obviously because of the timing of the ACL injury, the recovery starting in February of last year. It wasn't like he just jumped out of the All-Star break and he was ready to go. It took him a little while, but his numbers are good. But there are rumors that there's frostiness between Parker and the organization.
Well, of course, because Parker wanted to get paid. They said, no, we don't trust your 2 knees. So.
Which is a good bet. I'll be honest, that's a safe bet by Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's the thing you do, and they probably, will lowball them on the, like, maybe we'll just give you the qualifying offer. Well, how about, $60 million? Oh, I want the max. And then, as we saw with Nerlens Noel, it's very...
Yeah. At this point, I don't know if Nerlens Noel is worth the tender. I mean, he's in a bad way, man.
Yeah, it's not a good look for him right now.
That was one of the funner games that I was just talking about where Milwaukee played Denver. I think that was the one where Mason Plumlee got a block when it looked like Milwaukee was about to take the lead. Am I saying that correctly?
I do not know, honestly.
I'm almost sure it was, where it was very, very close, and then they got a leak out, and Plumlee blocked the shot, and that basically saved the game for him. We can transition this over to Denver and a really wild west at the bottom, because the only ones that have clinched as we speak are the Houston Rockets, who are probably going to finish with the best record in the league. Golden State, who at this point are just looking to try to get another 60-win season. I guess that's the goal now. And with Kevin Durant back, Klay Thompson back in the fold, it seems like they're getting all their horses back, except for Curry, of course, who's still out with that knee injury. And then the Portland Trailblazers have clinched, which is going to be a relief for them, because when you look at the schedule, by far the toughest is Portland, because they have to go to Houston, they have to go to San Antonio, they have to go to Denver to play a Nuggets team that's going to be hanging by a thread, and then they have to host the Jazz in Utah. And the Jazz might be in a similar situation to Denver and New Orleans and Minnesota and Oklahoma City. So it's not exactly – that might not be a tank game for the Jazz either. So those are the only 3 teams that have clinched in the West so far. We still have the Jazz, the Spurs, which unbelievably they're not going to get to 50 wins this year, which is unbelievable. Oklahoma City Thunder, Timberwolves, my Pelicans, and then right on the outside looking in, but that could change literally within the blink of an eye, the Nuggets and the Clippers. Let's just get this out of the way. We're not even going to talk about the record yet. Just give me a guess of which 2 teams of those 7 of them are going to be out. 5. You got 5 spots and you got 7 teams.
Oh, I think the Clippers are on the outside looking in. But I thought the question was going to be, hey, your Hornets going to make it? How they're not looking? The Pelicans going to make it?
I don't think the Hornets are going to make it.
Hornets, yeah, they blew it. And
I got to ask this. I know that he won championships during the Dynasty era. Mitch Kupchak, how does this happen? How does Mitch Kupchak get another chance as a general manager from Michael Jordan?
You see, I was reading up on him, and I'm trying to figure out, because he got a lot of people to make bad trades.
Mm-hmm.
He was there.
He got a first-round pick out of Lamar Odom when he was dead and buried.
Yeah, he got rid of Odom. He got the rescinded Chris Paul trade. He got the Dwight Howard trade, which everything went.
He got Paul Malone and Gary Payton for nothing. That was his move. Not a bad move.
And the Pau Gasol fleecing. So he had 2 basic illegal, mob-style trades, and then...
Didn't he do the Trevor Ariza one with the Magic?
Yes, he did.
That was a steal. Now, Ariza did leave, but that actually wound up being basically a trade with the Rockets for Ron Artest. At the time, Ron Artest, now Meta World Peace. But that at the end of the day, long story short, yeah, Mitch Kupchak has had some good hits. But, man, I mean, that's a horrible stretch where I know it may have been an ownership decision to have Kobe Bryant get that 2-year Supermax extension when they wanted to just walk him off into the sunset, but he was crippling their cap. But the problem was that was Kupchak's last stand to show what he could do, and he signs Timothy Mozgov and Luol Deng. And that was the end of the Mitch Kupchak era.
Yeah, and I think the beginning of the end was the Dwight Howard trade. of let's just put this piece in, even though personality-wise it didn't fit. It was just, I could get anybody to play with anybody.
It wasn't trading the draft picks for Steve Nash? Or at least because the Dwight Howard trade also, they gave up a lot of those future picks to Philadelphia, but they also gave up some picks to the Suns for Steve Nash.
Yeah, but don't forget, you don't make trades thinking they're going to be lottery picks. You figured Nash was going to be okay, I'll trade you 2 picks.
It's sell later, buy now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you trade with the Cavaliers. Okay, do you want the 30th pick, or you want the 28th pick? Yeah. That's what you're expecting. You're not expecting to be the 3rd pick. So I think things started to go south with Howard, and then after that was you said the obvious Luol Deng, which is worse than Mozgov, because Mozgov you were able to dump him, but
you had to give up D'Angelo Russell to do so. But now he's very different from Rich Cho. Rich Cho is more of the analytic guy. He did a fairly good job, at least as well of a job as he could have done in Charlotte, to be honest.
I don't think so, because look at that roster. They are maxed out.
But exactly, look at that roster. I mean, what else could he have done moving the chess pieces? Could he have backed off on re-signing guys like Nick Batum and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and Marvin Williams? Yeah, that's a fair criticism. But I think he was a little bit stuck there too.
No, the criticism is you have Batum and Kidd-Gilchrist, who are basically the same player, and then Marvin. You put your faith in Marvin Williams and his 32-year-old legs.
Well, Batum in a contract year sort of held him hostage because he played so well.
He did play well, but if you already had, because Gilchrist was injured that year, so it's one of those, you got both of them back. Well, how can they play complementary to each other? Who's going to be shooting? No, nobody can shoot. Okay.
Well, and not only that, because of the high draft pick, that boosted, that kind of falsified Kidd-Gilchrist's value, so that you didn't feel like you wanted to just let this guy go. It was such a high pick. That was the same reason that the Kings just recently got a lot of flack for releasing Georgios Papagiannis, because he was a first-round pick. So there is a lottery pick. That's what I'm saying. Like, that gets a lot of flack. I mean, with Bruno in Toronto, that was a point where that Masai Ujiri rode that out as long as he possibly could, and by the time he actually made the move, it was like, okay, we've given up. With Papagiannis, like you said, in the lottery, I totally forgot it was lottery. I thought it was just first round. And then Gilchrist was number 2 behind Anthony Davis. I guess there's just this obsession where you don't want to feel like you gave up, from a perception standpoint. So you give him a little bit more on the extension, and you just hope that he makes the leap. MKG just never made the leap. That was that was one of the problems.
And then don't forget they turned down 4 first rounders for Frank Kaminsky.
I don't know how true that is.
It wasn't the Brooklyn picks, but it was like probably all the other first rounders.
The only time I heard that story where I truly believe it was the Paul George one, where I don't remember what team was offered. It may have been the Hawks, or the Hawks offered it, but the Hawks supposedly offered 3 or 4 first round picks for Paul George. That one I can believe.
I don't know. The report was a lot of picks for Kaminsky and for that spot, and again, now you have Frank Kaminsky, good old stretch 5, who's not going to rebound or do anything else.
Yeah, not a great pick. I mean, let's be fair, not a great pick. I mean, Kemba Walker, we talked about this on the last episode, how he has that little stroke of unhappiness, even though he just became the all-time leading Hornet in terms of scoring past Abdel Curry, and he had a great year, all-star caliber player. Big-time numbers. I think he had a crazy game where he scored like 46 points, and the Hornets blew out the Grizzlies by like 1,000,000 points. It was like, 60-plus points. And he had a very good year individually, but you can just tell by reading the tea leaves, look, stars don't like to lose games. Sometimes they like to make money, but they don't want to lose games in the process.
Yes, they like making money, but they also like to be playing on into April and May. Mm-hmm. It's the perennial, okay, you're going home every year, your team sucks, you're terrible, you're just getting stats on a bad team.
So what can Kupchak do differently? Does he have to use Walker as like the what's the best word to put it?
The bait?
I guess you could say it that way. I mean, I didn't want to seem so like impersonal. Like, oh, Kemba Walker, you're our best player. You're our all-time leading scorer. Bye. Like, but do you think he'd really do that? It can go that far?
It would be one of those. Let's say you offered Kemba Walker and assorted garbage for like the number, top 3 pick. Who would say no?
I mean, well, that's one of the reasons too behind the Memphis Grizzlies. Not only that, with all the ownership issues, but the fact this is their only chance of having their own pick that can be of high value. So of course they're going to tank to get a good one, because by 2019 you ain't getting one. So
that's the thing about tanking, is how much is just tanking on one hand, and how much is you're just a bad team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Memphis did shut down Tyreek Evans when he was actually playing well, which was incredibly shady.
Well, that was just because of the trade.
The Suns are just bad.
Exactly. The Suns are just a really bad team. And Memphis is a really bad team if you're getting 10-day players again who are starting. And, two-way contract players playing 40 minutes. It's like, well, no wonder you guys are losing by 60. Your team sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Wayne Selden. I mean, and listen, I'm not trying to poo-poo on Wayne Selden, but when that's your go-to guy down the stretch of games, that is a really bad sign. Like, the Bulls, if you ever see Jerry Grant in crunch time, look out. I can tell with all the tank talk that you're just incredibly excited.
Well, don't forget, even if you're tanking, Ben McLemore's still not getting on the court, so how much are you really tanking?
Now, I mean, we can talk a little bit about Tankathon. I don't find it that interesting. I never really did, because especially with the fact that they kind of rearranged the rules where in the top 3, it's not a pick-em, but I believe what they did is they made the percentages a little bit more even than it was in the past. So that's the only intrigue that comes out of the lottery, that if you're one of the 3 worst, then you have a better chance than you did in previous years. But I've never really taken too much stock into that. Oh, we need to lose this one more game. Because Adam, here's the thing: how many double tank games do you get down at this point in the regular season? Tons of them. There's tons of games if the Knicks will play the Nets, or the Atlanta Hawks will play for example the Chicago Bulls. Of course they're both going to be shitty and not playing well.
Of course. And also, as a player, you can't tank, because who's to say they're not going to draft the guy who's replacing you?
Yeah, and listen, when these players, as much as people want to laugh at some of these guys that get blow, all the Max Kleber jokes that you can make in Dallas, who had a fine year for a guy that may have been toted out there for, in order to help lose games. I mean, still, a good year's a good year for a guy. When they go out there, they want to win. They're not out there oh, let me go out here and take this dive. No, they want to go out there and play well and win games.
Yeah, the only time they dive is when they quit on the coach. They don't quit on playing. And there's no, change in style. It's just, if you're going to put a bench player in and play him 30 games, you have a better chance of not winning. But at the same time, he needs to develop too. You got to see what you have. So there's a fine line. And, teams like Brooklyn and, strangely enough this year, Dallas, they've put some close games together.
Yeah, they have. I think actually the Mavericks just got a win over the Blazers, which shocked everybody. Dennis Smith Jr. is starting to come around. He's had a couple of nasty, nasty dunks in the last week or so. Are you still in that Ntilikina was a mistake camp, or are you starting to kind of turn that tide?
Compared to Dennis Smith, it was a complete you take Dennis Smith over him.
Yeah. But it's not sort of like that new narrative that's twisting with Chicago and the Jimmy Butler trade, where it's well, if you look at what the Bulls got, it actually looks fairly even, and you can almost talk yourself into it. You're not at that point, you're saying, with Frank Ntilikina and Dennis Smith.
No, you can't talk yourself into Jimmy Butler trade because you gave up a pick with it. So that was you're getting rid of he was damaged goods to you, so you had to offer a first rounder.
Yeah, and also time's gonna be the winner there, because I think that pick was Justin Patton, right?
Yes,
and we've literally not seen Justin Patton this year.
Yeah, and with Frankie, it's just okay, he might be a 2, but, you're getting an 18-year-old kid who's only played the European League, which is a completely different set, so you need to have time and patience with him, and if you think you can develop him in a 2, that's good. He's, watching him, he has some flashes. Well, that's what you can say all about rookies. He has some good games, and then he has some bonehead moves. It's just, this is what happens in this one-and-done era, where you're just taking 18-year-old kids who are now... their freshman year is essentially just in the on the bench in the NBA now.
Let's get back to that West discussion where we talk about the teams that are not necessarily clinched through yet. You said the 2 that are out. You definitely mentioned the Clippers. I didn't get that second one that you.
I wouldn't really give one because it's just going to be a travesty for whichever team doesn't make it.
Okay, so let's just add a 9th spot and let's just do another tiebreaker special game because Adam Murray just can't pick another team to take out.
No, I just said, if Utah loses, that would be like, oh man, they were, so feisty with losing Hayward and all. And
I think the Jazz will be okay. I think they'll beat the Clippers and the Lakers, and I think they'll be okay.
The Timberwolves went all in and then all of a sudden crapped out when Jimmy Butler went out.
That's what I was about to say. I mean, with Jimmy Butler being out for as long as he was, and I don't think they can get him back for the regular season. I mean, you can think about it, but I don't know if it's really. First of all, I think that would be a health risk, or a risky health move, and I think they can survive anyway. Theirs is that they actually play the Nuggets twice. They go to Denver, I believe, on Thursday. Then they go to LA to play the Lakers, but they also get the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are the gift that keeps on giving in this situation.
Yeah, and, the Pelicans already had the kick in the balls with Boogie going down, and, Denver sunk all this money into Millsap, who was just square peg, round hole.
Millsap finally had a good game for them and a win that they had needed about a game or 2 ago. Like that, I'm starting to finally see it with Millsap with Denver. So you can almost talk yourself into it that they could have, if Millsap had been around, they probably would have been okay. And so what I'm trying to say is they might have a built-in excuse as well.
The only funny thing is it would be if Oklahoma City didn't make it.
Well, dude, let me be a homer. The calls in the Pelicans-Thunder game were incredibly frustrating. That was just one of those games where you can just tell sometimes where the referees just decide, you know what, we're just going to give it to these guys. And I definitely got that feeling when I watched Oklahoma City beat the Pelicans. It was very, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? That you have some of those games where it's like no matter what, if you do everything right, it still wasn't enough.
Yeah, it is, and in the end, I don't want to be the one that says New Orleans is going to crap out. So that's why I'm just going to be sort of wishy-washy.
Well, I'm not afraid. I mean, if it is what it is, it is what it is.
I'd rather see Denver and then New Orleans. Either way, you're going to get crushed by Houston, but
I think New Orleans can give Houston some problems because of AD. But I don't think that they can eliminate the Rockets. That's pie in the sky. Denver, I think, would get knocked out really quickly.
Oh, yeah, but it would be, the young guys have to do something and develop because, well, Denver needs to make moves next year and move some people around, but it's still sort of a cluster with this whole West, and, I mean, 2 games separates you 4th from 9th.
And what about the impossible, the San Antonio Spurs? Do you think they can actually? They're not going to get to 50 wins like we talked about. Is there a world where the Spurs are not in the playoffs?
That would be confusing and just weird.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they say, for example, they do make the playoffs, they're going to be a road team against somebody, whether it be Golden State, Portland. I don't think the Rockets, because I don't think they're going to get the last spot. I don't think the Spurs are going to fall that far. They have to play the Blazers. They only actually have 3 games left after tonight when they play the Lakers. They play the Blazers, the Kings. Oh, okay, there's a win there. And then they actually go to New Orleans to play the Pelicans. This was the same scenario 3 years ago when the Pelicans had to win a game to make the playoffs, and the Spurs had to win in order to get, like a 3 seed, and by not winning that game, the Pelicans won it to make the playoffs, and by not winning that game, the Spurs fell all the way down to like I want to say, what is it, the 6th spot or the 7?
Mm-hmm.
And that completely reshuffled the Western Conference playoff alignment. It also forced a change where they went by the record overall rather than the divisional champion and all that jazz, so that they could avoid that from ever happening again, where the Spurs fell so far down. But I don't know if that. I mean, I know that game will have tremendous significance for the Pelicans. For the Spurs, I think they'll already be in by then.
Yeah, most likely.
But, I mean, there's a couple of these other ones. The Thunder don't have an easy. They have an ABC Saturday night game at Houston against the Rockets. I think the Rockets are still going to be wanting to play hard at that point, just to stay fresh. Then they go to Miami to play the Heat, and then they play the Grizzlies. So, that's going to be a Westbrook special where he goes for like a 40-point triple-double. But, I mean, is there any of these teams that you think would be just a complete surprise between like San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Minnesota?
I think if they didn't make it,
mm-hmm.
I think the biggest surprise would be Oklahoma City.
I mean, they've been a disappointing team overall. Is that safe to say?
Oh yeah, they haven't been that good really, but
they're not like horribly disappointing. But I mean, you could point a lot of that at Melo because he's definitely
the odd man out.
Not only the odd man out, it's just that he's devolved. He's devolved. He's not the pushy inside scorer that he used to be. He's just a jump shot guy. And I think he just had a game against the Golden State Warriors, who played like nobody in that game. And he went like 0 for 9 from the 3-point line.
Yeah, so that's sort of, like I said, that's sort of the travesty because the management went all in sort of this year, and they were supposed to be where Houston was.
Yeah, and it wasn't a bad choice by Sam Presti. You knew Russell Westbrook couldn't do that again. So it's like, okay, well, we're going to have to get him some help. So you kind of load up with some star names. You still have Steven Adams, even though you had to unload Oladipo to get Paul George. And it seemed like a fair trade. Now, I don't know. The Pacers seem to be sitting pretty. They're already in the playoff spot in the East, along with a few others that we could hit on. We could just float over and hit on right now in the East. How do you feel about the Pacers?
They've confused everybody. They've showed everybody up, and some more power to them.
They just had their winning streak broken, but you knew that their luck was going to run out soon. You got the Warriors, and then the Raptors on back-to-back games. Yikes! Like now they do get they get a home and home to finish with the Hornets, who have lost like 4 in a row at this point. So, would you say they split those, or they win both of the Hornets games?
I'll probably split them.
Okay, what about Warriors Rockets?
Lose both.
Yeah, I don't think the Warriors are going to lose again at home like they did when they were down on Durant and Curry. Now that Durant's back and Clay's back in the fold, I don't think they're. I think they're winning. I think Golden State's winning out is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
For the Sixers, now they're at a point where they've won 12 games in a row. They actually just had their closest one just against the Pistons by 7 points. This is almost like the Villanova NCAA tournament run. They're just like killing teams. And all this with Joel Embiid breaking his face.
Well, yeah, but they've also been pouncing on bad teams, I believe.
Yes, that's true. I can look it up in just a second if you can buy the time for me. But, have you seen Markelle Fultz at all?
There was a sighting of him, which, like we mentioned last week, was just the weirdest storyline, how he forgot to play, and all of a sudden, well, he's back and he scored 10 points. Well, it's not really hard to, score 10 points if you're
another triple-double racked up by Ben Simmons. Yeah, I'm going to give you the team that they played since that winning streak started, which was on March 15th. At the Knicks, Nets, Hornets, Grizzlies, at Magic, Minnesota Timberwolves, they beat by 12. The Nuggets, they beat by 19. Knicks again, at Hawks. Hornets again, Nets again, at the Pistons.
Yeah, not really an impressive string.
No, they do play. They do have a huge one on Friday against the Cavaliers. Who do you have winning? Because I think we're at a point where we can really be just isolate these games as the most significant. Because that's one where they might actually be tied record wise to fight for that 3 spot. Who do you have in that game?
Oh, I'd say Cavaliers.
You think LeBron will just kind of step to it and say, no, like the kind of, you remember how that happened last year when the Celtics, I know the Celtics got the 1 seed anyway, but do you remember when the Cavs went to Boston, they said, okay, this is Boston's chance to really turn it up, and the Cavaliers just blew them out. And it was like, oh, okay, this is where the Celtics belong.
Yep.
You think the Cavs will do that to the Sixers?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you take it? I mean, we talked about their Toronto win a couple of weeks ago. They had another one while the Toronto Raptors, who are still sitting at that 1 spot in the East, and I don't think they're going to relent on it either. The Raptors have sort of hit a little bit of a swoon lately, losing, I believe, 5 of their last 8, and then they lost another one just recently at Cleveland against the Cavaliers. LeBron looked good. He wasn't incredible like he was in the previous game when he had like a triple double and like 30 plus points. This one was 27, 10, and 6. But Kyle Lowry, who had flown into San Antonio to watch the Villanova championship game, looked awful. First of all, any flack for the flying in and flying out situation?
No, not if it's improved.
Okay.
It's one of those. Well, if you're gonna, you could say, well, they're resting him, but if they let him go, they let him go. So
maybe you just needed time to decompress.
It's not, you can have him sit on the bench there if he's not playing. Well, he asked, they approved. I think it's sort of an overblown story, but then again, it is Canada, who have nothing better in their hands to then just, beat that team to death pretty much.
Yeah, the listeners will find out by the time they get to this episode how they did against the Celtics, so I can't really comment too much on that. They do play the Pacers, the Magic, and then they go to Detroit and they go to Miami. Not the toughest stretch. I know Indiana, we just talked about, has been just the pain in everybody's ass all year long. Victor Oladipo, I think, won Eastern Conference Player of the Week, just playing out of his mind. Even when they're losing, even in the games that they lost recently, Oladipo's been fantastic. So we'll see how that goes. But the other ones, Orlando, Detroit, Miami, I mean, all those teams are either going to be out of the playoffs and not playing anybody, or in the playoffs with nothing to play for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have too much to say about the Wizards. I do know that they have a weird stretch where they have back-to-backs, but the first of the back-to-backs are tough ones, and then the second of the back-to-backs are the easy ones. So the only thing I could say for the Wizards is if you don't want to get that number 8 spot, you definitely want to at least finish out winning those later back-to-backs when you play the not-so-great teams. For example, they go to Cleveland and play the Cavs, then the next night they play the Hawks, a couple days off, then they host the Celtics, and then the next night for the last game of the regular season for them, they go to Orlando to play the Magic. Now, maybe they can steal one of those big ones against the Cavs and the Celtics, but you got to win that Hawks game and that Magic game, right?
Yeah, just beat the crappy teams.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've seen those where a bad team just beats a good one that's desperate for the playoffs, and it kind of just throws everything into a topsy-turvy.
Yeah, it does. It could happen any game in the West for now, pretty much.
I can't say that was the same case 3 years ago with the Pels and the Spurs, because the Pels were actually good. Like they were sort of on their way, and they had good players. They had the personnel to beat the Spurs. I can't remember a particular example where just a straight up bad team just ruined it for a team trying to make the playoffs. Unless you have like a better memory of it than me.
Nope.
Because a lot of times those bad teams, they usually just fold up, like when they go into tank mode, especially now that tanking is such a popular thing down the stretch.
Well, this year it is, and I don't, like we've discussed before, and we'll get back to when we get to the draft preview. It's just the draft isn't as deep as they claimed it was at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just once you start naming those Kentucky kids, and the Kentucky kids are rising up the board, it's just like, okay, now we know. They're full of shit.
Give me a prediction in terms of just the playoff seeding, like, or you can give it to me this way in terms of matchup. What would you prefer to watch? Like, for example, the Raptors. I don't know if I want to watch them play the Bucks again. And now the Wizards and the Raptors. I know we saw that a couple of years ago, but I'd actually kind of like to see that.
No, everybody wants to see the Wizards and the Celtics with the funeral and.
Well, yeah, but that was last year. You know, I mean,
it continues. They still have bad blood.
Okay, Taylor. So you're saying Wizards Celtics is kind of the place to be right there. No pun intended.
Yeah, but obviously I like to see Celtics Bucks. Yeah.
The Sixers are going to get their home court, but who do you want to see them play?
The Pacers.
Pacers, another scrappy team. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, scrappy team, and then the Heat and Philly. Just sort of round it out.
Well. So you want to see the Sixers play the Pacers, or you want to see the Sixers play the Heat?
Oh, they're both sort of. Right now, it's sort of it'll be Pacers and Philly.
Yeah, because the Heat to me, it's a situation where the Heat, the Wizards, and the Bucks are really really close record wise, almost identical. Then you get a couple of game wins up, and then you got the Pacers. But it seems like the Pacers are going to be locked in. Like, I don't think they're going to move.
Yeah, the Pacers are fairly locked in. And
yeah.
As for anyone else, for the Celtics, I'd rather just see the Bucks.
So what will happen in that scenario, just kind of glancing at it, is that the team that loses between the Cavs and the Sixers, as long as they hold court after that, will likely be the team that plays the Pacers in the playoffs.
Yep.
And we can move this over to the West. Now, obviously, I mean, this is all over the place. This could literally be upside down. The standing between 3
This
and
is already
9,
outdated as this airs.
That's all I'm saying. It could be very, very. I mean, and it could be. Let me say this: when you, as you say that, and the person listens to that and says, "Oh yeah, that could all be. That's all different now." Well, literally, like a couple days after that, that could be different from that. I mean, it's literally like. You know how they do those like shuffling games where they just constantly change the numbers so you can never remember them.
So then let's just say it's too close to call.
Well, give me a Rockets matchup that you like. Do you like
none? Because the Rockets will wipe everybody. Golden State will wipe everybody. Those will be unexciting matchups.
But what team would be most competitive against the Rockets? Like which team could give them hell? The Spurs?
Nobody really.
The Spurs just beat the Rockets. Now sans Chris Paul.
Yeah, but that's just one game, and the Spurs are very dysfunctional, which you never thought we'd hear. Here you said, the same thing. Thunder Rockets would be interesting, but
we saw
Thunder
that last year.
Golden State would be interesting.
I don't want to see Thunder Rockets. I've already seen that. In fact, I still have to see it on ABC in about 3 days.
Anything Houston Golden State, I think is just going to be an uninteresting matchup. Period.
The Warriors, obviously, no Curry. I'd like to see the Wolves play them because Jimmy Butler will be back. They're going to be super amped because it's their first playoff trip in like 13
but
years.
then he's going to play his starters 44 minutes and they'll be dead by game 3.
Well, here's the thing, Adam. That's why I think Thibodeau's always worked the best in the playoffs. That's what happens to the rosters. They tighten up their rotation.
The rosters tighten up, but they've already been so beaten down and worn out. Just, they don't look like they don't look all there watching the Timberwolves.
That's true. You're not just all of a sudden going to see like 40 minutes out of Tyus Jones. Like the system is in place. The most you'll see out of reserves is Jones and probably Nemanja Bjelica at like 25 tops, right?
Well, you have Crawford.
Yeah, but Crawford don't even top out at like 25 minutes.
But that's the thing is you could say, yes, I know, rosters shorten and benches get tinier, but at the same time, you can't be having that mindset in December, which, they've already had.
Mm-hmm.
And, when Teague went out, all of a sudden, okay, now Tyus Jones is getting his 42 minutes. No divvying it up. It's just, okay, you're the starter, you have 42 minutes. Okay, you're the bench player, here's your 12.
Let me ask you this about Jeff Teague, because I was looking at his numbers. If you look at the numbers, he's actually had a really good year, but when I watch him, I don't know. I mean, he's also getting a bit of a reputation as like a flagrant foul guy. Like he's not afraid to get a little nasty with you.
Yeah, he's getting that, but watching him, there's only so much he could do because Wiggins just looks like I don't want to say he doesn't want to be there.
Uh-huh.
He looks just kind of disinterested.
After signing a 5-year, $148 million contract.
Where they said you're the man, then all of a sudden, well, in comes Jimmy Butler. Okay, Jimmy Butler is best buddies with the coach, and now you're sort of third fiddle.
Well, that's a good point. Like, Butler was the guy. Butler is almost... He's like the more advanced version of Andrew Wiggins in terms of getting like the wing who gets to the three-point line. Athletically, it's Wiggins all the way. He can jump out the gym. There's only maybe like 10 people on earth who's a better athlete than Andrew Wiggins. I will raise my hand and say that. But Wiggins was the man in terms of getting to the free throw line for quite a while. Now Towns and Butler have sort of taken over that role. They've taken that corner from him.
Yeah.
So I think that might be a bit of a problem. Like Wiggins, because he's not a tremendous outside shooter, he sort of feasts at the free throw line. That's where he gets like a good portion of his points. That's when he gets to over 20 and 30 points in a game. And when he's not engaged like that, the rest of his game starts to falter.
Okay, fine. Then with that being said, I'd like to see Minnesota and Portland.
Okay.
Because Towns could average 70 points in that series.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the Blazers is that their bench is actually much better than people thought. Like, everybody's been poo-pooing on their reserves, but it turned out the reserves wound up being just as good as the starting people outside of Lillard and McCollum.
Well, the problem is their front court is just so weak to begin with.
Zach Collins, hello.
and Caleb Swanigan and...
Yeah, Biggie don't play at all. Myers Leonard, he's sort of almost like in the Keith Bogan's role, where he'll start for like 10 minutes and he'll be gone.
So here's a random question, which I could have Googled it, but I'm too lazy. Who did they trade? They traded Vonleh to Chicago. Who do they get in return?
I think they got the rights to a player that it was one of those like very random rights guys. Yes, it was a dump.
Wow.
It was one. If you look it up, we can look it up later. But I am.
It was a luxury tax dump.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where you just take the rights to match it. I think the one who was in that realm for a long time, Milan Makvan, where his rights were just traded over and over again.
I don't know, but I assume it's probably someone who was drafted in 1998 and he's 37 years old. And
the saddest one, if you remember this, was Luke Ridenour, because Ridenour had like a team option, but it was like a $6 million team option, and people just kept continuously trading it to open up a pocket of cap space. But no one had any intention of keeping Ridenour, and he was like traded like 4 times in like 3 days.
Yeah, he was traded 4 times. He got traded back to Denver twice or something.
Yeah, it was one of those things where the NBA probably had to close it up and collect the new CBA.
Yeah, but it'll be like I said, the West. I'm just gonna say it's too close to call. And it would be a tragedy for any of those teams if they didn't make it.
Not necessarily in terms of too close to call, like who's going to win the West. You would still say the Rockets and Warriors are in the driver's seat there.
Oh, yeah, this is just round one fodder.
We're just talking about who's going to play who. But I will say this, even when you get to the Blazers, who seem secure at the 3 spot, I don't know if they're going to get out of the first round, Adam. I know they're playing well, but I'm not putting my eggs in that basket yet.
It just depends upon the matchup.
Yeah. Okay, so you're copying out on me again.
I'm just gonna be nice and neutral on this one.
Well, let me ask you this: do you feel a little more confident in the Blazers than you did in years past? Some people would say that you're a Blazer hater.
Look, I didn't say I'm a Blazer hater. It's just their front office makes the same dumb mistakes.
Well, I know you're going to talk about Evan Turner, but I think you're still poo-pooing on the Andrew Nicholson thing, even though Andrew Nicholson's been gone forever.
No, that's not the stretching for 7 years. It's just, all right, let's put a lot of money into Lillard and McCollum, who are the same player. Well, okay, we got blown out. Because our front court was bad. Well, let's draft 2 players who were the same thing, and we have Vonleh, and then let's, sign Turner. Let's just duplicate our signings and duplicate everything we do.
I'll tell you one thing that's kind of interesting about him that I've noticed. Shabazz Napier has become a very good backup point guard. I didn't think that would happen in the NBA. I was very sketchy about him coming out of UConn despite his success. But good player. I'll tip my cap there.
But being a backup point guard isn't anything super spectacular.
We could just transition that one because I think we're kind of all tapped out with the NBA for the time being. Hopefully everybody got a little good, dose of that. We could kind of transition that with Napier. Had all that success at UConn. Let's just talk a little bit about the Villanova championship game and their championship run. First of all, were you surprised?
No, we sort of predicted it.
Okay, because we do this from the NBA angle. It's so stupid to say, oh, this is the college basketball version of the Warriors because they shoot a bunch of threes. That's incredibly lazy. But are there parts of their offense that you enjoy?
No, it was just a bad season all around, and they were just dominant from the get-go.
How many pros are on their team?
One.
You don't think Jalen Brunson's going to be in the NBA?
Oh, he was sort of the one eye.
Oh, but Cal Bridges is going to be the lottery.
Okay, fine, two.
That's number 25. Not the guy who went completely nuts in the title game, Dante DiVincenzo? Is that it?
No, he just had a good game.
Oh, come on.
Fine, he had a very good game.
Okay, and last question, we can finish up with college. Is Jay Wright going to the NBA? That's the new hot take.
No.
You don't think he'll do it?
No, he's content being there, being now the school. He's Villanova sort of replaced Arizona as the
what? Guard U? Yes.
I was going to say as the destination to be.
As the new Wildcat place. Oh, this is the Wildcat school I want to go to.
Yeah,
that's what they should do on Twitter. They should say, I committed to play for the Wildcats, but they don't know which one. So it just keeps all these other Wildcat schools in suspense since there's like 25 of them.
Yeah, no, it's just like, okay, it was Arizona, it's Louisville. No, now it's just people are looking for Villanova. So yeah. Why would you want to give that up to be, the coach of Phoenix?
I mean, pretty dominant run. I mean, I'll say that. I mean, like, it reminded me of North Carolina in 2009 when they had Hansbrough and Ellington and Ty Lawson and Danny Green. And, I mean, I think it might be a little bit lofty to say this, but was it similar to 1996 Kentucky when they had Tony Delk and Walter McCarty and Antoine?
It always has to come back to Kentucky with you.
Well, the 1996 team was one of the best ever. That's why I said that.
Yes, because I think of greatest teams in history. I think of Tony Delk.
Tony Delk was awesome in college, dude. Don't even play. Don't even play. Antoine Walker was a dude too.
Antoine Walker was good.
And I think Walter McCarty, is now like a coach.
Yes, he's a coach at Evansville now. Yeah,
I saw that. He was really good. I know Tommy Heinsohn loved Walter. I gotta add him on that one. Okay, we're gonna finish this one up. We're doing a lot of these recordings early because I will be off for WrestleMania, which is gonna be in the New Orleans Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Almost said the sponsor wrong. Also going to NXT, but we're not going to talk too much about NXT. I don't think you're even that interested in talking about that one. I doubt you would know half the people if I talked about.
I don't know half the people in WWF anymore.
WWE.
It'll always be WWF.
I mean, we have to serve the place to be nation purpose. I mean, it's just something we have to do. We have to do our, it's like our prerequisite requirement.
Yes, we do, and then it's just, let's get it over with.
I could give you the background story of all the matches.
No, let's just.
All right, okay, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I don't even know if you know who the people in it. Just give me any kind of random name that you would think would.
Iron Sheik.
The Iron Sheik. I'll give you some of the more known guys like.
It's a battle royal. It means could
Matt
just.
Hardy, Dolph Ziggler. Oh, they win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy. It's a giant trophy of Andre the Giant. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, but it could be anybody.
Mojo Rawley won it last year.
Good for him.
Okay, women's battle royal. Sasha Banks and Bayley are in that battle royal.
Then let's have one of them win.
But which one?
The first one.
I am here to ask the hard questions, Adam. You need to answer them.
I said Sasha Banks.
Cedric Alexander versus Mustafa Ali for the Cruiserweight Championship. Which was vacated because Enzo was fired because he was accused of sexual assault.
Sure. Let's go with Mustafa Ali.
Mustafa Ali. All right, now we're going to get to actual important cards. Tag title match: Usos, New Day, and then Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. You know the New Day, right?
No.
The studios and all that.
Then let's go with the New Day then.
You go with the New Day. Cesaro and Sheamus versus Braun Strowman, who's like their new big guy, and a mystery partner. You go with the mystery team, or you go with the champs?
I will go with the champs.
Cesaro and Sheamus retain. Randy Orton versus Bobby Roode versus Jinder Mahal versus Rusev for the United States Championship.
The U.S. Championship, I think Orton will lose.
Orton's a champion going in, so you're saying he's going to drop?
Yeah, you said he's a champion, didn't you?
Yeah, because one of those other guys can take the pinfall off the other. I would have to think Jinder. I know Jinder was the WWE champion for a while, which is like a incredibly long-running nightmare. This is the Intercontinental Championship. It's a triple threat. The Miz, Seth Rollins, and Finn Balor.
I'm going to go with The Miz.
Yeah, I'm a Miz guy. I like The Miz.
Well, I think he's one of those stories we all watched him on the Real World wanting to be a wrestler. So it's kind of hard not to, knowing his backstory.
Well, here's the thing, too, about The Miz, and I mean, not to try to sidetrack too long, because I know we're going a tad long, is that he was a guy who it seemed like he made it because he got pushed, and he even became the champion in the WWE, and then he got thrown all the way back down, and then he built himself back up again. And that's not easy. It's easy to quit, but he didn't. So I got to give some credit to him. Now we're getting nitty gritty. Charlotte Flair is the SmackDown Women's Championship. She will be challenged by the winner of the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, which was Asuka, who has never lost. So who wins?
I will go with Asuka.
You'll go with the undefeated.
I know there's a lot of Japanese wrestlers in this year for some reason.
How did you know that Asuka's Japanese?
As opposed to all that, Korean wrestlers they have.
Okay, Raw Women's Championship, Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax. Kind of a giant.
We'll go Alexa Bliss.
Alexa retains that championship? Okay. Here we go with the big stuff. Rumored match, still not sure, John Cena versus The Undertaker.
Cena?
So Undertaker loses a third one? This is like getting LeBron in the finals band.
Cena's hosting the Nick Choice Awards.
Uh-huh.
People are tuning.
He's also in the movie Blockers.
Okay. People, new fans are coming in probably because of Blockers.
Because of Blockers. So the Undertaker has to lose at WrestleMania because John Cena has to promote Blockers.
I thought he retired last year.
I guess, well, you could say this, that the dead man retired, but Biker Undertaker didn't.
Sigh.
It's kind of like if Cactus Jack retires, but Mankind doesn't, kind of thing. I don't know.
That's stupid.
I'm not saying that's what it is. Okay. This one was a shocker. It kind of came out of nowhere because he was medically cleared at the last second. Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Now, if Bryan and Shane win, Owens and Zayn remain fired on SmackDown, which I obviously know will be held against them forever, and they will never work in WWE again if that happens. Correct?
So, yeah. So they're going to win. So they're going to win then.
Well, unless there's a heel turn.
The only ever loser left town was Mark Merrow. He's the only one who actually lost and just never wrestled again.
I went to WrestleMania 30 in the Superdome where Daniel Bryan won the title. I am so pumped that this is his return match. I know it's just a tag match, but another tag match, this one of the celebrity type. Kurt Angle and Rowdy Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon.
I think it's going to be Kurt Angle.
If Rousey does not win, that is the biggest mistake of all time.
That's sort of they're gonna, they probably paid her a ton, so they're gonna try to put her over super fast.
This one is the one that a lot of people consider the dream match because it was in New Japan and they were just big time beast mode performance there, and now they're at WrestleMania wrestling for the WWE Championship. AJ Styles, the champion, being challenged by Shinsuke Nakamura.
I'll go with AJ Styles since I gave the women's title to the...
So you're not going Japanese twice on the champs?
No, I don't think so.
They both won the Royal Rumble. Nakamura won the men's one and Asuka won the women's one. So, nice variety there. This is, to me, the main event. I think this will go last. Brock Lesnar, Universal Champion. He wrestles Roman Reigns.
I'd want to say they'd give it to Roman Reigns again, but didn't everybody hate him the first time when he won?
Yeah, that's like a rhetorical question. They hate everything Roman Reigns does at WrestleMania. They wrestled at WrestleMania 31, but Seth Rollins cashed in Money in the Bank and won the title. So he pinned Roman, so Brock didn't have to take the pin to lose the belt. Then a year later, Roman main evented and then beat Triple H. Then a year later, even though it wasn't a title match, the main event was Roman and Undertaker, and Roman won. So Roman's been on top 2 years in a row.
Then let's give it to Brock Lesnar.
But, okay, and what about the rumors that Brock might go back to UFC and he might not renew his contract with WWE?
He can't go back to UFC because he was suspended for steroids.
There's rumors that he might be able to serve out the remainder of the suspension. He might be ready to go by December.
Yeah, I doubt that.
You are such a poo-poo artist. Just poo-pooing on everything, this incredible WrestleMania event. Are you sad you're not at the Dome to watch it?
Nope, enjoy yourself, have fun.
Thank you. Alright, on behalf of Adam Murray, this is Andrew Reach. Take care, guys. Weekend for the playoff.